Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 31, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank Jez Graham for introducing me to. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here today with Jerry Fields. Where in the heck you calling in from, Jerry?
Calling in from Atlanta, Georgia.
What a cool place. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Self-knowledge.
Wow, I never get that. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Experience.
Wow. Dude, you are knocking them out of the ballpark. Why why do you
Well,
think you're like what? Two words, self-knowledge, experience. I love this. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
I think they do that to help them navigate their way through society and interface with others.
Yeah. Interface, what a great word with others. And so, do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
I think it's more invented based on the education system as far as collecting knowledge. Experience and mastering any kind of activity through integrating the knowledge within yourself and hopefully learning from mistakes and not repeating them, to me, is the best way. But in today's society, you've got a lot of people collecting information and none of it is manifested in their life. So there's a saying where, like the pundit with all of his knowledge does not know the Gita, like a mule going up a mountain with a sack of books on its shoulder. It doesn't mean anything unless something happens within and it flowers. So I think it's been a more exaggerated need to collect knowledge. And it also is a way for people to hide from themselves, meaning their true selves.
Yeah, that was good. The pundit does not know the Gita. How do you spell Gita?
Gita, as in Bhagavad Gita.
Wow. It resonated with T.S. Eliot, the poet who said, had the experience but missed the meaning, or didn't get the meaning. So that's good. You brought
Yes.
up the
Well,
word experience. Yeah. Do thoughts create
filters, filters.
filters? Good. Yeah, another word. Do thoughts create emotions?
I think memories and projections create emotions. And I think all thought is based on collected and past knowledge. I think insight comes beyond duality. Sorry, I'm a drummer, believe it or not.
You don't have to apologize, man. That's music's the highest art form. Don't worry about that. I love it. Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Thinking. I think ruminating, projecting, looking at possible outcomes too far in the future is something more invented. And it's a lot of it comes from society being packed in tighter together than back in olden times when you had to walk somewhere or you experienced the news, you didn't check it out. So right now you can be thinking about all these people in politics, all these things here, what's happening there and there because of your access to quick information. I have a former student who's worried to death. He's in the 8th grade about the asteroid hitting, nuclear war, and this kid is actually distraught about things. They're all possibilities, but that's all they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my answer.
Yeah. Really good, Jerry. That was good because it reminded me of some anthropologist or someone said, you really only need about 150 people in your community. We don't have to know that there's an earthquake across the world or this or that. If you can get along with your 150 people in your walking distance, like you just said, amazing. So fill in the blank, Jerry. I don't know
And
what oh,
let
go
me
ahead.
add to that.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sure.
Go ahead. Well, so for instance, to me, I can kind of tell the state of the world by who actually uses a turn signal properly, who flushes a toilet in a public bathroom. It's more about the state of these people called humans than the events. I mean, how we deal with things that come into our environment is enough of a challenge. When we're worried about Yellowstone, blowing, and we carry that around, or was Atlantis real or not? That's, being way far out. So that's sorry. So you can ask me to fill in the blanks.
No, don't ever be sorry. If I will cut the pace faster, but I'm always welcome where you go, wait a minute, let me go back. In fact, this guy I interviewed the other day, every question I asked him, he went back and tried to answer it through the other question, which was fine, but it was like he was holding on to it. And that was, because I just have the pace going fast, but it doesn't have to be fast, believe me. Yeah, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
see myself in action.
Wow, see
I
myself.
don't really
That's good.
know.
Yeah. No, that's good. That it's from McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. And Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. So can humans think without language?
That's interesting. I would say probably not, because a lot of it's internal dialogue. And, when I studied Spanish, I'm dreaming and saying stuff in Spanish or whatever it is. So I think a lot of it comes from the acquired knowledge in the culture. And that's what's going in the head, the continual dialogue within the mind. So I'm not sure if without a language, I think there can be insight, but you may not be able to put it into words, which is also one of the best things, like they say, neti neti. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this. The truth just is, right? So
Yeah.
insight, maybe, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about thinking without words.
I like that word, insight. Beautiful, Jerry. Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
Good question. I speak louder to a person who doesn't understand me, no matter what their language is. That's just a joke. No, seriously.
I
For
like that.
myself,
Yeah.
I'm like we go to China and don't speak Mandarin, but we think you speak English. Hey, if we think if we're louder, they're going to get it. So in my world, I've tried to learn greetings in different languages, and of course, I've always been very interested in world culture, which is why I really think what you brought up is important. So I try to know something which automatically about the person I'm speaking to, if they're different culture, to help them relax. And it's really amazing how the communication can go forward with less barriers just because of that. Wow, that's really nice. This person knows assalamu alaikum or this, So yes, hope that
I
did
like
something.
I like the word relax there too. It also kind of evoked Bleecker Bob in New York. He says, I'm not an asshole. I'm from New York. Because how they speak it.
You talking to me?
Yeah. That's all the way they say they love you.
Trust me, I would rather have a French chick curse me out than a German chick tell me she loves me. Just language based.
Okay. I know it's a stupid question. It's both, and it depends. But are humans more thinking beings or more feeling beings? Your observations of humans in general, more thinking or more feeling beings?
I think they're more feeling beings, but that's not on the conscious level. I think that, and I'm saying I think this entity thinks. Um, we go around with our dialogue, we go around with our things, but triggers come in from experiences that we can't put a word on, and that's the subconscious. So I think at the root, it's more of even like events in childhood that, or even after someone who you had a hard time with passes on, you still have that baggage and you think back and you're angry. So I think we've got all these crazy things going on, but anything in the day can trigger an emotion. You're like, what's going on here? So I think it's ultimately more emotional, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more thinking going on,
Really well
which
put,
catches
Jerry.
people by surprise, right?
Yeah.
Catches them by surprise when, damn, I thought I had my act together.
Two questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
The true soul, no.
Yeah.
True soul's beyond duality, beyond birth and death. This I do know from my experience in meditation, not from any belief system. Once again, you talk about beliefs, you talk about bringing something in a lot of times to give yourself comfort, but it ultimately, the universe and whatever that engine is so much bigger. I once had a classical Indian dancer ask me what my conception of God was. And I said, wrong. I want to fall back into not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fall back into, that's great. Fall back into not knowing. Well, Jerry, I got to tell you, if I tear up or the person tears up, I know it's a good interview, man, and that me up. So thank you. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
I hope not. I have no clue. I know they're working on AI. I know you can teach one to play chess and it just keeps progressing and you got to be on your toes. I don't really think about that question too much. Hey,
That's
wait, I don't know what it's thinking. Makes
Do
me
you,
nervous, Jerry.
yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
If I have to pick either, I would say meaning, which leads to contentment.
Yeah.
Happiness has an opposite. It can be based on, oh, look, like the Chinese proverb, bad luck, good luck, who knows? Oh,
Yeah.
that seems bad luck. Farmer goes. So once again, what I try to share with, I used to teach yoga and all this. I never really teach serious meditation, but don't freeze the frame of the film and cling to it and say, that's the story. So we're in this flow, in this story. And yeah, that's all I can say about that.
And
Meaning
that
leads
is
to
cool. Yeah.
contentment.
Yeah.
So that's why, just look at this, let it happen, and then just know your reaction. Like if someone's angry, if someone makes you angry, you thank that person because people are just people. So I also try not to judge based on that.
Yeah.
We're all in the movie at some point, and
Yeah.
we're cutting back and forth. So
Yeah.
we want to recreate pleasure and run away from pain. But the thing is, that's all part of a definition. It's not necessarily the ultimate. So letting
Yeah.
go is another important thing.
Really well put. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
That's a good question. I have a friend who is in intensive care, and she's been in a coma since she was dancing Friday night, showed up in a coma. She appears to be unconscious, but hearing is one of the last senses to go. So, from people from near-death experience and everything else, it's like, how did she know this? So that consciousness pervades and expands beyond the tool of consciousness, which we call the brain. It's just a different form. So to me, this is a tool like a receiver. And of course, there's a lot of static based on our collected knowledge, which blocks our instincts, which blocks our ability to be truly content, getting beyond the duality of the good and bad. I don't want to be Nietzsche, but I think he had some beyond good and evil. So suffer for the little children, thus is the kingdom of heaven. Kids play all day, fall asleep in an instant. I don't know if you've had children, but boom. And they don't have an agenda before they go to sleep when they're very young. So I think that's the consciousness is multidimensional. The brain is a tool that it expresses.
Beautiful. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Have no clue. But I can be in Bombay right now, here. I don't know, maybe the speed of light can make that trip 8 million times, but I'm not going to know. But seriously, that's another point, right? I'm sitting here trying to do something and boom, my mind's somewhere else. Look, I'm in Paris. I'm here. I'm in the past. How did that happen? Pretty fast.
Ram Dass says, be here now. And Wyndham Lewis said, artists, and not be elitist, we live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So that's sort of like, boom, boom, you're in Bombay and now you're back in the Zoom.
I never left, Jerry.
This is all an illusion.
I'm a trickster.
Compassionate trickster. I love those. They're my favorite. So the poet Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rayner responded and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Who's the master? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Who's the master?
You can put the master, it could be metaphorical. It's like Zappa said, who are the brain police? He didn't say they're consumer. They're not saying government. He's saying, who are the brain police? So again, I open some of the questions with cute quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply it. It's really, what tool do you gravitate towards? You can add the word new if you want. And again, you put the questions in the context you want, and you can apply it to the quote. The master could be metaphorically something, or it could be, your boss when you get hired for a job. So,
well, I can say this: if it was a teacher, like a skill, then I would learn from the teacher and I would use some of his tools. I might find, who knows, maybe the teacher is doing the same thing in the same way, and because I'm a newbie, I see another angle. So then I go around and I dismantle that structure faster. If I'm thinking about self, then the master could be all this crazy stuff that appears to be me. I'm male, I'm a musician, I'm this, I'm that, I'm from the United States. But to dismantle that, I've got to enter stillness. So that to me is the most important tool, but that also gives me insight to do things so-called out of the box on the physical. Maybe that's why I would find a new tool to tear down that pastor's house.
Really? Entering stillness. We're going to get into this, but that is amazing. I want to get into that deeper, but let's move on because that is really cool. So your answer was entering stillness. What new toy do you suggest?
A bolo paddle.
What is it?
You know, that thing with the rubber band and you boinka, 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 boinka?
It's called a Bula paddle, Bulla.
No, bolo paddle. It's got a rubber band and a rubber ball,
Right,
and
but
you
how
have
do
to
you
try to keep
spell it?
it going.
How do you spell it?
I think it's Bollo.
Bolo paddle. I love those.
That
That
paddle.
see you that
Well, you know
bolo.
why too. Look, check it out. If you're doing this, you're going to be ducking and smiling, dude. You know, you're in the now, or you're gonna get racked, right?
You're gonna get whapped
Boing,
in the
boing, boing.
face.
Look, yeah, look. What else can you do? Duck, dodge, and hit. I like the bolo paddle. I need to go get one.
I need to get one. As soon as you find out the I want one bad. That is good. I'll dumpster dive one within a week. You know, I'm
I'll
a psych.
find them. I'll send you one from Amazon. I'll
Yeah,
send you one
I'm
from
a psych.
Amazon.
But dude, I'm a psychic dumpster diver. Literally, I bet you I'll find one within a week because I found them in garbage. But it's funny how this happens. So, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
What do I worry about? Well, I try not to worry about
Yeah,
anything and just surrender to whatever and then be grateful with another day. But sometimes I may have a stress related dream, or I've got some music I've got to prepare on my mind, and then I have to work at like shutting all that down just to go
yeah,
ta-da, you know. So I would say a lot of it depends on what's going on, but I usually find out that worry is counterproductive and a waste
yeah.
of energy. So that's sometimes a challenge, the stress of like, oh man, you know, this is coming up and I'm a little behind here, and you know, but I really try to like settle down. I don't look at screens before bed, all these kind of things, to just kind of get the mind clear and sit and do a little bit of meditation. So
Dude, you're my hero. You're a wise man. So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. And you know, by artists, I mean drummers, educators, painters, filmmakers. Artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So, Jerry, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I think a lot of times because when it's in our hand, we have a sense of control and we don't really surrender to the instrument and learn from the instrument. Just like the drum. The drum, whenever I sit down at the drum, I say hello and I listen to the drum. I just don't go and, you know, and throw all my stuff on it and see it as a one-dimensional thing. So I think a lot of it is once you've got it in hand or you think you've got your tool, then you're not listening to the tool.
Yeah.
And so that automatically shuts off what that tool can facilitate in the proper hands.
Yeah. Wow. Do artists have a moral obligation?
That's a good question. I would say the only thing that would probably be nonviolence. You know, to be nonviolent, to surrender to the art and not use it as a means to an end. In other words, using art to define yourself, but bringing your whole self, heart and soul, to the art. And then I think the art can be healing. So to me, that's more of the moral thing.
Yeah.
But once again, there's some killer guys out there that have beat women and do other things, and you know, whatever their energy is, but it sure can sound good, you know. So to me, the ultimate thing is I have something on my back wall there. God is sound, and that's not a Brahman. It's from the Upanishads. That all these things are vibration, which means they're creation. So
Yeah.
that's the approach that I think is the moral obligation, but it's everybody's at a different level. So, I can't say, what's the matter with you? You're not, turning into a lotus blossom. Sometimes people just need the kinetic energy of wailing, and that's not necessarily about the music. That's about the feeling of wailing.
Yeah. Are you more Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I would say I keep learning, but old ideas, it's part tapes in my head from the way I was brought up that were very binding. And so those voices are still there. That's old ideas, that's old judgments. So when they come up, I recognize them most of the time. Like I say, I'm not an enlightened being. If I was, I couldn't even say that, right? So but I'm just saying that those come up, or it's like, you know, who are you? You're no better than me, or even the whole thing about the way Black people were viewed when I was growing up. I was born in 1950. That's an old idea. Fortunately, I experienced at a very young age that, uh, oh wow, these are people. You never saw them in Philadelphia, so interacting, and so those old ideas never burdened me there. But there are still things like I have to work through of old inputs coming in that resurface. So I'm more open to like new, meaning in the present, and then on that's part of the process of letting go and saying,
Yeah.
wait, I understand, but that's not the deal.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yes, I can.
What is it?
My sister and I getting under the sink, I was probably maybe walking barely or crawling and getting into all the cleaning supplies and knocking them out all over the floor in an upstairs apartment on Levick Street in Philadelphia. And because back then people didn't put stuff out of kids' way. There were no
Yeah.
seatbelts either, right? So I
Yeah.
remember that total mess, and I think my sister eating, detergent, whatever. And of course, I still remember that thing.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Good question. I think if you linger in the memories, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, it can be a curse. But I think if you see the memory as it comes through and acknowledge it, it can all be good.
Jerry, tell me please one person within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
I would say my Aunt Carol, who's passed away. Most of my family has passed away except my younger brother, who's 10 years younger than me. Longevity's not in my family. But my Aunt Carol, who I lived with for a while because I was going through tough things with my father, she always supported me about being who I was. And in fact, she gave me a thing, about marching to a different drummer. And later on in her life, because high blood pressure and all that is in my family and aneurysm, she had a brain stroke and had to learn to, function again, language, everything else. Volunteered at the stroke center. So I would say, and my Aunt Carol would dance her butt off and do the limbo, always look good. And yeah, I would say my Aunt Carol. She was also my godmother.
Beautiful. Outside your immediate family, same question.
Well, there's several even now, but I would say hmm, Mother Teresa. She's not part of my family, but
No,
yes,
that's
Mother
outside,
Teresa.
outside your immediate family. That's the answer.
Yeah.
What do you think you mainly got from Mother Teresa?
Comfort, don't convert. See whatever you want to call it, God, uh, whoever it is, the universal thing in everybody. And I was very impressed that, her working with the lepers, but if a leper was dying, she didn't use that as a chance to try to get them to convert to Catholicism. They were given the burial rights and the respect of their religion. Uh, Once again, God is beyond religion. So I think that her feeling of, I like to think of it, seeing God in disguise.
Yeah,
Everything is part of that same energy. If you rank it, whether it's a dog, whether it's a bird, whether it's a person, whether it's this or that, then you're
yeah.
shutting off the joy that can happen from that recognition. So I think her approach to all that was very meaningful to me.
Wow. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
I was raised to be a Roman Catholic.
Hello, me too. Do you pray?
I tend to listen more than pray.
Wow.
Uh, I think praying is talking to God, being quiet is listening to God.
Yeah,
But if I do pray, I would never pray for someone in particular. Like my friend, I'm not praying for her recovery. I'm
yeah,
praying that I'm wishing her to
yeah,
surrender with the ride. We all love her, same thing. Or I won't pray that you become a Southern Baptist and accept, I won't do that because I don't know what's best for your soul journey.
yeah,
But I will say, dear energy, please help Jerry find the truth within himself, something like that, but not lay any specific, get that job, this or that, how people pray for things.
yeah,
So I send good feelings to people. Maybe you would call that prayer, but I don't go, in the name of the Father or any kind of
yeah,
formal prayer. But I'll think of people and just send comforting things in general, not specific.
yeah. Jerry, if God does exist, would you like God to say to you after you die?
Thank God I've got a sense of humor. Oh, wait, that's me. Oh, wait, that's me.
You mean God's saying, "Thank God I have a sense of humor." That's
Then,
like you'd love. This one guy goes, check the record here. We made a mistake. You're going back."
that's right. Right.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I would say more the second, that people get consumed by ideals and things like that, and their humanity goes out the window. I don't think even, we talked fewer Adolf Hitler. He woke up in the morning and said, you know what? How can I break hearts and hurt a bunch of people? Sybil's parents, the first diagnosed schizophrenic, they didn't get up and say, how can I screw, but that whatever weirdness was in them
Yeah,
manifested. And that child that came from sperm and egg, it was taken out on that. And just like, my father, he beat me because he was frustrated with himself.
yeah,
So he never asked for forgiveness, but I realized I knew it wasn't intentional as I got
right.
older. And he died in my arms at 48. And yeah, so I'm saying, I think it's more like, I don't even like to call it evil. I just think that idea, like, well, look at all religion. People grab that idea. You
Yeah,
convert to this or, I don't hear a lot of Buddhists starting trouble. It's usually the sons of and daughters of Abraham,
yeah,
right? Christians, Jews, and Muslims.
yep.
Shintos
Well,
did a little crazy stuff, but
yeah.
Buddhists tend to be pretty laid back.
Yeah. Well, the actual hidden question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts said, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. Basically, Jerry, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I agree, because the enemy is just something that doesn't flow with your plan, that doesn't flow with how you think things should be. So if you, sort of like I've said, I love Satan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's that about? Well, and I had a dream about that. And where this demonic figure was like, "Arr," right? And I began, walking through the valley of death. And as I was saying that this was in a dream state, it became totally transparent. There was this little crying child inside. So thy enemies are thyself, right? So I think if you acknowledge it as outside rather than this event or this person is messing up my plan, then you do empower it, because it takes power over you. If I love Satan, what power? It's creation of the same energy.
Yep. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, we're not part of a ritualistic healing society where storytelling is helping process a lot of things. Dance, like the Gedra dance or the sun dance of the Sioux, or I was talking about the Bedouins in Morocco or in Africa, where music is part of everything. It's not an abstract art form to indulge
Yeah,
in. It's not out there. It's like,
yeah,
hey, check it out. Child's born, someone dies, a woman menstruates, quinceanera we have in Latin
yeah,
countries and even in the United States. So music was, or plays and storytelling, or what's that one, Some Young Delhi from Bali, where they do the shadow puppets, and so all of those things are not total entertainment. They're woven into the fabric of the
yeah,
culture and society. I think what's happened now, a lot of times, I would say, especially here, I don't know what the culture of the USA is, possibly consumerism, but what is the definable dress, food, dance, and music of the USA?
yeah,
Whereas Greek music, you can tell, right? So I think that that's part of the reason, is like, oh, and also, once again, you're an observer. It's
yeah,
easier to observe and feel emotions than to actually be in it. So I think that's part of an escape. I'm not saying it's all bad. You can see something poignant and go, wow. But a lot of times it's just entertainment. And I think you have to be a little bit aware of that, and you can get something good out of it. But that's what I think. It's not all woven in to the
yeah,
society. It's
yeah,
separate. Arts have become separate. They probably weren't even called arts.
yeah.
People just did it.
Well, that you evoke McLuhan's favorite line. The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
That's and I mentioned that dance, the puppet theater dance.
You did. Okay, so Jerry, tell us the tipping point when you said, I'm going to pursue drumming, being a percussionist, music as my career, as my calling. Like, what are you listening to? Vinyl, live music, radio, and you're hearing stuff, and then you're going, that's what I'm going to pursue. Would you study in
I
college
would
or whatever? You just briefly your through
Okay.
line there.
Yeah. Well, I've never chosen to do music. So I say it chose me.
Yeah.
I remember fond memories. My father was a drummer and gave it up, and us kids dancing outside the window when he's playing this doom doom doom, and we're doing the hoochie coo. But I began when I was 14. I was already playing clubs with adults, and I just kept finding myself doing it. I never studied in college until later in life. I got a degree in class. I did classical percussion because I was already doing all kinds of drum set, but I've never chose it for a career.
Yeah.
And when a student asks me, you know, I want to become a musician, but I want something. I want to study something else to fall back on. I'm like, well, then don't, because
Yeah.
I've never been in a popular band. As far as there's a lot of entrepreneurs that play. Bill Graham was like, I'm getting a bunch of stockholders with long hair. Right? So for me, I'm an idiot, bro. I'm a divine idiot. It's like one of my students, I did a thing on tablet and I goes, it's a sick virus to just surrender to. But I've never friggin' chosen to become a musician.
Yeah, that's pretty boy, you really said that well. I love that. Okay, so you compose music and lyrics? I mean, on Music to Eat, you get writing credit on a couple 3 songs. So are you did you compose did you you're let's say just in the idea of composing music for Jerry, not a hired hand. A screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a song for Jerry? Like, are you writing a song not as a commission or, on your own?
Right. I'm not writing a song to be performed necessarily, or I'm not doing something that. Let me say one thing about the Music to Eat situation. Uh, the compositional aspect of that was so cool because no one told me what to play on the drums. It was like I was the drummer and the bass player was the bass player. And there were certain lines that Harold and Glenn would write, and then Bruce and Harold would write weird lyrics. But the whole point is that, or Glenn wrote some. But the thing that was like the freedom of like composition occurring right there.
Yeah.
And I was with the late Bronze Age, and I mean, I would play and I would be in a different, totally out to lunch rhythm than the rest of the band, and it never phased them. And
Yeah.
it was really, really cool. So that was like spontaneous composition.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to compose something for students or something, then I do have an idea of trying to get something through to them that will enhance their depth of music.
Yeah.
But to me, if I hear something in my head, sometimes I'll say something on my phone, memo, go back to it. I'm doing something now for a master class at a college, and I'm taking Twinkle Twinkle through a bunch of different variations to show how jazz and the rhythm changed and the harmonies. And Mozart did a bunch of variations on that. So I've taken that one thing and showing its many faces based on the
Yeah.
African influence and projection of. So that's with intent, but it's also, people don't realize that it's going to be experiential for them because they're going to be clapping clave and I think I'm going to rap. I'm going to write some crazy lyrics and just be like, yo, and just get them all going. And then it'll
Yeah.
become like a community thing. Because to sit
Yeah.
there and watch like this or like this. So my thing is to like break that barrier. So that's one of my intentions for this thing coming up.
Yeah. We're gonna get more into music now. That's really fun. Were you the drummer on One Ruined Life of a Bronze Tourist?
No, that was Al Nicholson.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think that was Billy and Al, a couple other people, but that Then there was the late Bronze Age Isles of Langerhans. I was on that album.
I see. Beautiful. It's really music's moved me deeply. Yeah, my favorite is Frank Zappa and Bruce were friends, and Frank would get all these tapes sent to him all the time, and I'd have to take these boxes and get rid of them, or and I found the tape of Bruce he had sent to Frank, and it has this song, "There Is No Sound." It's a
Sure.
love supreme as there is no sound. And that one like just blew my mind to be like tossed out as garbage. Like, wait a minute, this is valuable. Okay, so what's the function of music?
I would say expression, joy, um, and also I think in the bigger sense, music's a teacher when you surrender to it. Once again, vibration. When you listen to the instrument, when you tap into that and get yourself out of the way, I think the thing that's kept me in music, like I say, no popular bands, is when you enter the timeless state because you're serving that music so much, and you're serving your colleagues, and time just explodes and you have no clue how long things have been happening. And because if you're in that moment, you're not editing, nothing's happening but that. So to me, on a higher sense, and what's kept me in it through thick and thin, is those limited experiences. But I could die a rich man. I mean, I did it one time. I was up Smith's Old Bar in Atlanta, winter night, carrying a bunch of stuff up steps. My two sons helped me. I left something at the house. They went back. I had some old colleagues. We did giant steps, like a tenor battle, and all this. And I looked around, and we made $11 a piece. And I was like, it's a good day to die. So that to me, seriously, looking back, seeing those cats with the dimples and us doing it, it was like, geez, was there any money? No, but it was like I had done everything. It was a day well lived. So the hell with it.
Nice.
It was great.
How'd you learn that, Jerry? From the way your parents raised you, on your own? Well, how'd you learn to understand that is what life's all about?
Not to get too heavy, but in my past life, I'm just joking. When I was writing poetry and things from a very young age, and I once wrote a poem. I think I was 10, and I said I must live the way I would have things be, and suffer for it not being so. And I
Yeah.
think for me, these experiences of like coming from playing jazz, improvisational music. Although I've done the same in the classical thing, I think that just comes from my awareness of self. Uh, like even when I got into Indian music, at first I was like, "Who's killing the cat?" I began meditating and things like that. I heard the same thing, and I goes, "Oh, they're in 14. They're on Adi Chotal." But when I first heard it, no, 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 no. So as the stuff relaxed more in myself,
Yeah.
it's become easier for me to get into the now. Hmm?
Yeah.
So it's not been all the time, but there's been that. Yeah, my dad was not like that, obviously, and my mother. So yeah, nobody taught me from the outside.
Two of my film heroes say, George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. And jazz pianist Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff comes through me. So I know it's sort of stupid. It's both and it depends, but just your hunch or inclination. Is music making, art making, more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology, cultures, or environments are dominant?
Hmm. I would say self-expression and self-discovery. Don't forget, self can be taken like self or self. So I think that it can start out with the expression of like your influences and your culture, but at the ultimate thing, It can be for true self-expression through that instrument.
Yeah.
You know, through that instrument, but you have to like be in the instrument too. You know, I've got a set of tabla over there, dude, and I'm like not even a child on them, but I practice them every day. Don't practice. The practice is the goal, and the process is the same.
The
So I
process.
just, yeah, there's no goal. It's, in other words, no means to an end. I just do it.
Yeah.
Sort of like Buddha said, don't just do something, sit there. I'm from Philly. I'm from Philly.
You are great. Yeah, I got to tell you these two, though. I love, though, in this question I always bring up is James Brown's drummer in Ohio, the architect of funk drumming. He said, how'd you do it? He says, I had a train track on one side of my house and a factory on the other. So it's boom, boom, boom. And then Ginger Baker, where'd you get your drum sound from? I was in London when they were bombing us. Boom, 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 boom. So, you know,
someone asked Elvin Jones at a Percussive Art Society convention. So, Elvin, how did you learn to swing? And he's like, and he says, I guess when I was in the Army carrying 2 big old truck tires. But I have an Elvin Jones story based on that cat could be in the moment. And my father, who hated I was listening to all the, you know, Albert Eiler, you know, Coltrane, and he was more of an old big band guy. A couple of years before he passed away, he began to get back into drums. And I remember we threw a surprise party for him with a grease band. I almost had to have him arrested by my mom to get him down there. And he sat in and, you know, off the hi-hats. But he went down and saw Elvin Jones. And my dad he could shtick with anybody. Yeah. And Elvin had his bell bottoms and had them rolled up. So my dad became an Elvin Jones fan. Yeah. I saw Elvin at a convention in Anaheim. He was getting into the Hall of Fame. And I'm walking towards him, and his wife, Keiko, basically had to direct him because he's like a child. You know, he's a big old child in a lot of ways, doesn't function really good on this plane. And she saw me approaching, and I'm saying, Louis Bellson, all these heavies were around me. And she pointed him at me, and he walked up. And I told him the Elvin Jones thing. And Elvin just, the whole time I'm talking, there's total, just gave me a big old bear hug when I told him about my father. Wow. But that's the kind of thing he was a conduit for sure of, like you said, Elvin, what are you playing on that? I mean, dude, he just had that ability to just channel something. He channeled it. You know, I love Elvin, but I missed Jerry the part. I learned to swing in the Army by carrying what? I missed 2 big old truck tires. 2 big old truck tires. Carrying 2 truck tires. Truck tires. See, I love these kind of stories. This is what these are so important because you put it into the context. You just didn't tell an anecdote. You punchlined it with the bear hug in the conduit. So really beautiful. Can art making, music making be egoless? It's a challenge. It's really a challenge. I would say that it's a constant battle to remind yourself to just quiet down, surrender, listen, and just do it for the sake of doing it. It's real easy to be like, I'm the cat, or who's better, or I'm making this bread, or check out and all that stuff is like ornamentation. It's not the real deal. So to get to the simple thing, I think that's also why I play tabla, is I will always suck. And it's just like, it's not like, but it's a reminder, you know. Number one, it's a beautiful instrument. It's, you know, got hundreds of years old, and the poetry of it's wonderful. It also helps with mindfulness, and I believe Alzheimer's, because you recite all this stuff. But I think it's a challenge not to be to be the cat, to get the vibe, and to just, stick your chest out a little bit. And then, of course, it's always nice to see a youngster who can bring you back to earth, right?
Really good. My friend says the 3 T's of music: technique, theory, and taste. So you learn the technique, you know the theory. How does one acquire taste?
Good question, because I have the STP formula.
What's that mean?
Three S. Serve the music, serve your colleagues, serve yourself. Taste, technique, and what's the third T? It's been a long time since I've used it. Taste, and technique. The biggest one's taste, technique, and
Theory.
something else.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't use theory, but then practice, perseverance, and patience are the 3 S's.
Oh,
Taste,
I
think
see.
I think
The three.
I think it's time. Yeah, STP, like it's time, taste, and technique. In other words, without time and out taste, it's like I can be. Yeah, so STP. So I can be like a wordsmith and try to tell somebody I love them, and they're like, "What the hell did he just say?" And I can have a speech defect and be like, and they're like, "He loves me."
Yeah.
So technique is further down on the line. You only need enough technique to get the story out.
Yeah.
So you don't have to fluff it up, And McCoy Tyner, back to Cecil Taylor, said the same thing. A buddy of mine went up to him and asked him, what do you think about, or what do when you play the piano? He says, nothing. I just try to get myself out of the way.
Yeah.
Get myself out of the way. Same thing Cecil said, right?
Yeah. I missed though the S on the STP: serve the music, serve the self, and what was the third?
No, serve the music. So it's first serve the music. Second is serve your colleagues.
Oh,
then the third S is your colleagues, your fellow musicians.
Yeah.
So you're not just imposing your ideas and you're not listening. And then the third, which is automatically taken care of, you do that, is yourself is served.
And then the P,
music,
right? Got it.
T's. The P's are practice, perseverance, and patience.
Wow. My mom taught me, God, give me patience and give it to me now.
I know. That's a good one.
That
one. Of course I do. I'm an old cat, man. I'm an old cat.
Okay, on to taste a little more here. This is McLuhan, and you're in this world of other cultures, other countries. This is what McLuhan said. I'm not asking you to agree or disagree, just your thoughts on this. Song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
I agree 100%. You've got a friend from Germany. Listen to the way the Germans speak. You got that rhythm of the language. French, you go to Brazil, Portuguese sounds like, Spanish with a little bit of French. Or you go to Puerto Rico, and it's like, hey, papi, the caliente. You got Latin friends are like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You come to a Southern guy from Tennessee. It's like, how you doing, partner? You like comb your hair, paint, and powder. So I definitely, language shapes the music.
When you're writing, Jerry,
I agree.
Yeah, that was good. You explained that better than anybody's ever explained it. Okay, so when you're writing music, again, like for yourself, composing, Copeland says the 4 elements are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. How do you navigate those 4? Is there one that stands out? How
rhythm would stand out first to me, because melody is dependent upon rhythm. Melody is sound organized in time. So there's that. Okay. Then after that is established, then harmonization or lack of harmonization, be it, organum, like open fifths, be it this or that or that. But the main thing is the rhythm shapes the melody, and then, you know, tone colors can come, but then you can do your harmony based on that or lack of harmony. You can do linear music. So that's my vibe on that one.
Great. Monk says there's no wrong notes. Any comment?
Keep playing it over and over like Orlando Di Lasso when it becomes right.
Yeah.
You know? He did a lot of weird stuff, and Miles said something similar, you know?
Yeah.
If you now what's really cool, if you're listening to yourself, you know, it's not a mistake. If you ask somebody to play the mistake you just made, many times they can't because they're
Yeah.
so freaked out about it. But sometimes that thing can open another avenue of creativity. And I have to tell you a Beethoven thing because, you know, Beethoven worked hard at his compositions. You know, it's not like Mozart who took dictation. Mozart, his manuscript was pretty much spotless when he wrote it down. Beethoven's drinking a bunch of coffee, doing all this. So one day he's struggling really hard at the piano, and his mother walks through and says, you know, oh, Beethoven, you just keep up. And he goes, Mommy, you're such an inspiration to me. And he goes, ha ha ha. She goes, ha 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 ha.
That's how am I going to remember that one? Well, it's at the 1 hour point 101. That was good.
And
Okay,
that's a small motif, but he built that whole symphony off of that motif. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was able to play timpani on that. I was timpaniist with a symphony orchestra. So I have all the scores and got into that real seriously. But yeah, it's like, ha ha. His mom goes, ha 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 ha.
That was beautiful. Yeah, well, in that regard, you anticipate the next question. You must have ESP. Tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
An instrumental.
Yeah, I usually restrict. It can't be Spike Jones because most of his songs.
No, because that's
Most of his songs are
right?
dependent on lyrics. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. An instrumental. I would say the entrance of the Gladiators. And I'm laughing a little bit now because the comedian Dave Attell said, yes, you know, and I remember the first song they played at our wedding. So he met his wife at the carnival. So that that always makes me laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, the Three Stooges, you know, the Three Stooges theme.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Miles talked about the space between notes. How do you determine that? How do you navigate that dynamics of not playing? You've talked about not knowing. How do you know how to not play?
Listen,
Yeah.
and breathe. You know,
Yeah.
especially if you're in an ensemble thing, realize that you really don't have to make anything happen. You just have to have enough technique to get what comes to you spontaneously out. So you don't need to fear. Most people in this, well, I would say, I'll give it a percentage, 99, if not 100% of the people are afraid of silence.
Yeah.
So when you're in there and you're holding a long tone, you're like, and you're feeling it, and then the next thing comes, should I be doing more? So all these things can get in the way. But I think if you're breathing and listening, and that story, it doesn't have to come out like cliff notes, right? It should be a nice flow, and then it can carry things with it. But if it's like done, or like a lot of the cats today, they learn transcriptions or they go to college. Got my butt beat by elders. You know, they see a melody, but they see the chord changes and they say, I'm going to apply these things to those chords. And they don't even totally know the melody, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, is to just listen to yourself. I tell that to my students. Why would you want someone else to listen to you if you're not even listening to yourself when you're playing the instrument?
Hello.
So I think that's a lot of it.
That's beautiful. In fact, just before we leave, Monk said, "Silence is the loudest sound in the universe."
Hell yeah.
In
How
my
about John Cage, 333, man? The audience gets so uneasy, they become the composition. And I've done that. I've performed that in 3 movements, by the way. I had a page turner. I had a page turner.
Nice. It's 4:33, by the way. But hey, why not
Told you. Hey, good job. Good job. That was a
drop
test.
drop a minute,
4:33.
drop a minute. He wouldn't mind. In the other one, I got to tell you, my favorite artist in Venice here, he said, Thelonious Monk heard all the notes Charlie Parker heard, but only decided to play some of them.
I can get that.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to see Monk live.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I was blessed to see in the original Mile Quintet. Yeah, there was a rich thing happening back. I hate to say like in the day, but I was exposed to, the masters,
That's it.
George
That's
Benson playing with Jack McDuff at a club in Atlanta. I played with
woo.
Marion Brown from Ascension and Benny Wallace and a lot of different
Whoa.
cats. So yeah, Marion Brown and I up in my garage apartment. He just got back from Africa or somewhere. I heard the original Weather Report rehearsal when we were up at Apostolic Studios. So, there was a rich culture, and I was blessed to see, Earl Father Hines, Monk, the Miles Quintet, all those different things.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I'll tell you one. Well, Earl Father Hines wrote a letter to my wife and said, of all the white women trying to imitate Negroid singing, you're the only one who has it down pat. And it's on his stationery. And that's
That's
a
kind of
pretty
cool.
And then the original weather report was Miroslav Vitus on bass. I saw
Yes,
that band
correct.
too. He said the joke I repeat constantly. They call me Bounce because I'm one bad check.
That's pretty cool. I'm not going to tell the joke about, I know another Czech joke like that, but I got to tell you something about listening.
Yeah.
When I saw Ramsey Lewis Trio,
Yes.
I forget who the drummer was. I think it was Hope, and then there was maybe Maurice White, whatever. They were playing outside of the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and I always loved the way he did "Love Theme" from Spartacus. That has haunted me.
Yeah.
Of course, he was doing in crowd and all that, but the drummer did a solo, and he's doing a solo, and he noticed the delay in the stadium, and he played off of that. So that
Nice.
that was something that was totally hip. And I was probably 16 when I saw that, and I went, check that out. And it was like playing off of the echo, man. Right there, it just went somewhere. That was pretty cool. That always stuck out with me. I'll never forget that experience.
Well, you had the ability to listen and know the room and say there's something happening here, because this is, deep listening is Pauline Oliveras' thing.
Mm.
The LA Free Press asked Zappa about this, or no, Bob Marshall asked Frank about this in the LA Free Press in the summer of '69. Frank mentioned Pauline Oliveras' work with sound above the audible and below, creating a mass. And that you like that idea. And Frank said, not that it created a mass, it created something audible. It produced a some indifference tone, which happened to be located within the audible frequency range.
Okay.
By combining something so high you couldn't hear it and something so low you couldn't hear it, it yields something in the middle that you could hear. Whether or not you liked what you heard in the middle is another question. The concept is brilliant. So any thoughts on that idea that in
Well, I
some
think,
indifference, yeah.
go ahead, say it again. In some indifference, go
The
ahead.
whole idea of something audible so high and something audible so low, this some indifference tone.
Like a carrier tone almost.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I've experienced that. I think it's true. I mean, line writing, believe it or not, can do that. Real close intervals
Yeah.
can create. I have a friend who studied with Herb Pomeroy up at, and Ellington was very much into the line writing. In fact,
Yeah.
Stravinsky used to go see him in Harlem whenever he came to New York. But these close intervals, when they're played in tune, it gets the overtone series going, right? So
Yeah.
it's not the notes, but they become a totally giant different thing. And I've actually experienced that at a rehearsal where all of a sudden it sounds like, a Bulgarian choir, or I mean, it's a small, and that would be a very small group can pull this off. So you don't need a giant band. You just need to have the cats who can play, and it makes the sound bigger. So
Yeah.
what you're pressing and what you're doing is not all of it. It's like what comes as a result of that. And that's
Yeah.
very close intervals.
That's really well done. That's taught me a lot about that. I'm always struggling to understand that. So Ben Ratliff is a music writer. He said, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players, as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So, me and you could hear miles, and Ben would go, that's fragile and pointed. We could hear Coltrane in a couple notes and go, that's train. And Ben called him slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music writer was writing about Jerry Field's sound, what 2 words or couple words would you feel he got it? He understands my sound. Or, yeah.
Like writing after hearing me and what he would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
a couple words that you feel he got it.
Deep, simple, and moving.
Yeah, deep, simple, and
Simple and moving.
moving. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if it's good or bad, Jerry. I'm just trying to be honest.
Well, no, it sort of puts people on a spot, because it's sort of like that when I say a music writer, they some news they've had where people got it, but you got it. That, I mean, that's that.
Well, the other thing is this: when I had an experience of teaching at a middle school and a high school, like just doing drumline and some, drum tribe, I called it, and as well as music and movement and mindfulness, because I've done flamenco dance and taught that, and also designing a class on food, music, and culture. But most people, especially students, if you ask them a question, they think you already know the answer, and they're afraid to answer because they think they're going to be wrong. And I had to keep saying, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, right? So that's another thing, the desire to be thought well of, this fear. No, you're asking questions. Whatever's coming out's coming out. Ask away. I am not, none of this bothers me. I think
Yeah.
it's great, man.
The quote I use all the time when someone asks me a question, I go, that's a very good question. I wouldn't want to ruin it with an answer. That's John Cage being a smart ass, but it is good, but what was the motive? What was the motive of the cave artists? In cave artists, we mean cave musicians, cave dance. We don't have documentation of that, but we do have some documentation of the cave art on the walls. What do you think their motive was?
That's pretty heavy question.
Yeah.
Wow. Why would somebody feel the seasons, see the hunt, whatever, and document a history or like a calendar or something like that, without, except for the communication within that? I don't believe for posterity. I don't think they were thinking that far ahead, because living in nature, they probably were more in tune with their survival self, which we've
Yeah.
turned off, right? So I don't think it was like, check it out, when we're done and the aliens come, they're going to see this crap and go, that's a badass hand. Right? You know what I'm saying? Now, why did the Egyptians have such interesting perspective? You
That's
know, so but it's interesting. But that very thing of like, it's not even like cement, and someone's putting the cement down. Why would they do it? I would say just based on survival. You know, so I guess
yeah.
how like I would joke like, you know, you hurt your arm, you're like, ooh, 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 ooh. You know, this oohing sound and this rubbing is very natural. And then also, why do we dance? Why do we do this?
Yeah.
And I make a joke like a couple of cavemen are going through, and one guy falls, hits his head on the log, boop, you know, he gets up or he stubs his toe and starts jumping around. When he notices, oh, I'm jumping around, it feels good. So he starts jumping without being hurt. Or
Yeah.
the guy says, all right, and he finally goes, get a pair of sticks and hit the log, right? But I
Yeah.
think it's more based on experience. And I don't know why they decided to put pigment on their hand and do that, or even
Yeah.
adorn themselves. You know, there's all kinds
Yeah.
of things where, oh, they were adorning themselves.
Yep.
So ultimately, I would say it's survival based. Other than that, I have no clue.
Yeah, that was good. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction to compromise, but not lose your morality or lose yourself. I think if you lock it down and say this is it, and that's my conviction, and you're not open, then yeah. But I think to be open enough to, when I say compromise, I would say uh, come together, not compromise. Almost sounds like a negative term, but I
Yeah.
think that you know, it's sort of like this. I would use this analogy. I always thought that if a couple was having an argument, they should just put a pair of those glasses on with a fake mustache and then deal with it, because it might
Yeah.
help them realize it's the problem, it's not the other person. So by being open and listening, right, you've got your convictions, then the compromise comes from listening, and then together things can happen. But if there's a good side, a bad side, then there's something considered. Well, you know, I gave up this. This is my compromise. What are you going to do? Well,
Yep.
that's not healing. Conviction to compromise is probably what I say without that being negative.
It's an amazing answer. I love that. Thank you. Because I studied conflict resolution, and it is me and you don't verse each other. It's me and you versus the problem.
What's
You know,
wrong?
we
Yes.
gotta teamwork on this.
And
Yeah.
I had an experience with a guy in college. I was an older student, and this dude, I could feel something, and I went, you know what? So my mind's going, he's this, blah blah, and I'm like, why don't you go up to him? And what I did was, I said, you know, I didn't call him brother, whatever his name was. I said, I'm feeling this. I just want to know, is that what I'm getting, or you know, I asked him to help me,
Yeah.
you know, not accuse him. And I think it kind of was, he was sort of like that, but then I found out why, and then we resolved it. But it was kind of like I had to go, wait a minute, can you help me understand this, as opposed to what the hell's going on, right?
Right. No, you know, that is conflict resolution at its best. That's really good. So T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. You actually said this words earlier, in internal dialogue. What
Mm-hmm.
what language is your inner dialogue in?
The language of love. No, just kidding.
That, hey Jerry, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right.
Thank you. Move on.
That's the Philly sound at best. Okay, the language of love. Is perception reality?
Say that again.
Is perception reality?
No, it's perception. Perception is colored by what blinders or prisms we have on to filter the reality. The reality is just what it is. If I see perception, you know, this is bad, this is good, this person judged this, or what about this? I meet you 2 days ago. and something occurred in your life, and we had previously communicated, and I'm like this, and you're not reacting, and I'm like, well, what the hell's the matter with him? Blah, 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 blah. Things keep moving on. So I'll hold that. And the next time you woke up, I say, here comes that, you know what, hold. So the
Yeah.
deal is, that's not the reality. The reality is we're all moving. And so, but if I perceive it, it's based on my upbringing and this and that. Now, I can see you physically, I can hear you, but the reality of the moment and what we're doing is not limited by what we call perception. It's about letting go and just being part of that.
Yeah.
So that's my vibe on that.
Lewis Carroll, that was good, Jerry. Lewis, and again, I want to thank you for being so dang articulate, because what I feel is what you're saying is, I'm getting what you're saying. I feel like I am, you know. So Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Not impossible. No, I mean, no.
Tell me one major element of your creativeness. You've done it for years. That's changed, and one major element that stayed the same.
I think what's remained the same is the passion of surrender and coming together beyond thought with fellow musicians and with a receptive audience has remained the same. And I think the element that's changed is what it takes to facilitate that experience.
Yeah.
Meaning, many times, less is more. Like I say, listening to self, surrendering,
Yeah.
serving, STP, all that good stuff.
It's good. Less is more is total amazing. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and music movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Good question. I would say possibly fear of not being good enough as a weakness. That's a weakness. Judging myself compared to others and things like that, and then using that same fear and transforming it into fearlessness through surrender and just the joy of doing.
Wow. Fearlessness. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
You're cleaning house.
Cleaning house.
Scrub it.
Clean. You mean literally or metaphorically or both?
Pretty much literally.
Yeah, literally. That is good. All right.
I wasn't deep, Jerry.
Hey, that's it. Look, I'm here to have fun, but we got about 7 more minutes. Can you go a little longer, or you got to go in 7?
Let's see how it flows.
Okay.
Go ahead, keep going.
You create what you resist. I'm not saying Jerry. I'm saying there's a saying that goes, one creates what one resists. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, said, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So this idea, any thoughts, you create what you resist. Not you, Jerry, but one creates what one resists. Yeah.
I think if you dwell on it and obsess on it, then it's always in your consciousness. So yes, if I'm like trying to fast and all I do is think about food, the fast probably won't go too good. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a lot of it, because if you're resisting and this and that, and then you're empowering, and then lo and behold, yes, things are created from that. They may not be a direct, you may not be recognizably direct.
Yeah. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Good question. Physical aside, I would say in general, the nurturing instinct in women versus the hunter-gatherer vibe in men.
Yeah.
And I kind of see, but they're both are necessary, and I think we have to understand both sides to be complete. I use the example of clave, just here.
Yep.
You've got the forward motion and a backward, so expand and contract. So both are required to create that energy. If it's just this,
Yeah,
right?
it's really good. I love that. Can you forget to die?
Can I forget to die? I have no clue. We'll see what happens.
How do you find
Can I
peace of
forget to
mind?
die?
Yeah.
Again?
How do you find peace of mind?
Trying to do everything in full consciousness. For instance, I've got a little thing that, basically whatever you're doing, it's all the same. So if I'm washing the dishes
Yeah.
without motive, if I'm practicing
Yeah.
without motive, if I'm meditating without the desire for experience, then all those things, driving and only driving, it all can be a form of peaceful meditation, and
Yeah.
it can be enriching and calming. But if it's like agenda driven, then no. So I think that once again, trying to no high or low, which we like to do as human beings, that's important. That's not important. He's a VIP. That's just that. Well, no, there is no VIPs, right? We're all VIPs. Would tell my students that were, even a college student asked me to help her with meditation. I said, take your thumb. I don't even know you can go to the bank anymore and get an ink pad and make that. And I says, that's your mandala. So just sit there and breathe and look at that.
Wow.
And just realize that you're the only person in the entire planet with that. And you're already loved. You're already important. So just relax. And that's the hardest thing, is to not go, damn it, I got to do this later, but I got to do this now. Go, I'm just going to do this, man. I'm just going to do it. And then it's like, woo, I'm not bummed out. I'm not so fragmented that I'm depleting my energy.
That's great. Meditate on your thumbprint as a mandala.
Yeah, just
it's like you don't even have to draw one. You got one right there. You got your mandala.
Yeah, but it's
right?
kind of fun to put it there and stare at it,
I love that.
My eyes may cross, but that's also good.
5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a few words, each one. Here we go. First one. Who started it all?
I have no clue.
Are we going to make it?
Yes.
Where do we put it?
Where it belongs.
Who's cleaning it up?
Everyone.
Is it serious?
No.
Dude, you are massively. This is so fun. Jerry, I ask these questions, for 30 years, and now with Zoom, with COVID, I do 4 a week, but I'm actually fishing to hear answers that I want to hear. I'm open, and I don't say that's right or wrong, but I like it when someone says something how I feel. It's sort of like, is consoling. So yeah, a lot of your answers are like what I want to hear. So I appreciate this. Couple more and we're out of here. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
It's going to be all right.
Yeah. Which way should toilet
That's
paper?
Go ahead.
Say
I believe that's also becoming a grandparent and having grandchildren and sitting back and kind of laughing because I was a single parent and struggling, and you're like, oh my God, and just going, it all worked out, and just, watching, some of the stress in my children with their grandchildren and just, letting them know and smiling, it's all going to turn out,
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's
12,
good.
it'll be all right.
Which way should
Go ahead,
toilet?
ask
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
I don't give a crap.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Reader beware.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Sandalwood.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Somewhere where birds won't sit on it, and something that is going to disintegrate. Not marble, in other words.
Yeah.
Limestone,
Jerry,
something that's going to.
yeah, limestone. That's good. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good I've never had and never want.
Yeah.
Don't really know how to answer that one. Don't know.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Probably go, it could be worse.
It could be worse. That is a good answer. It could be worse.
Don't forget, I'm only up to my neck, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't forget. You're saying that to the person who's throwing it,
Saying it to myself. Hey, could be worse.
It could be worse. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
To be honest with you, I don't see a whole lot of cultural shift that inspires me, but I do see in some young people, students that I've worked with, and this is not, it's part of the light they brought with them, rejoicing at a struggle and getting happy at a challenge and not or like trying it even though they've never done it before. I think it's very hard these days for anybody to do that, and especially a young person. And I was blessed to have a couple of students that, man, I throw something challenging at them and they're like smiling, or because that feeling of growing and from agitation, right? You got to be a little bit uncomfortable and go through it. If you're comfortable, it's already known, right?
Yep.
So I think that I see in instances, and that gives me hope. I say, okay, yeah, cool. There's people out there like that.
It's really good. Two more and we're out of here. I really love what you just said, because that's in the McLuhan world. We go, how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How do you turn a rejection into a redirection? And it's like follow-up. I work with young people too, and I'm like, they go, wow, blah, 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 and then there's no follow-up. It's like, dude, you got to do follow-up. You got to, it's, Okay, this is Thornton Wilder, 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes, Jerry. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
discovering my true self, letting go, and just enjoying the ride.
Yeah. Wow. Last question, Jerry. What a pleasure this has been. I'm truly had a ball and got enlightened. What gives you the most optimism?
When I see someone in a service industry do their job joyously,
Yeah.
which I've experienced, and usually we don't acknowledge that. It's like somebody's not doing their job, and then we complain all the time. But
Yeah.
I've taken the time. There was a lovely lady, old lady, working at a Goodwill, and I brought some stuff by, and she was reading her Bible, and I come walking in, and she was like, "Thank you for the mission and all that," and she was just so. I probably wasn't making any bread, and she's like 68, right, and doing her thing. And I walked out and I went, you know what, I'm going to Publix. I'm going to get her a bouquet of flowers. So I brought her
Oh,
back some flowers and I said, a little sunshine. And she was just like, wow. So seeing, and she wasn't like, I should be doing something else or this sucks or blah, blah. She was just there and she was digging it, man, because she was there. And I was like, I have to let her know that inspired me. So getting her those flowers, and of course she never forgot my name. But yeah, little things like that
yeah.
hit me really hard.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because that's what I learned. I learned that from my parents, and just still I sort of asked you that. Where in the heck did you get that from? That sensibility. Let me just set up the whole interview. Is the first question is, what's the best thing for a human being? And I got that from Wilhelm Reich. He said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And you said self-knowledge and interface with others, helping navigate that self-knowledge to have interface with others. The last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That was the question they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said the same thing. Other people, he spent his life cutting down other people, making fun of them, but he knew it was other people. So, again, where did you get that? People don't generally do that to someone in the service industry. It's like, I want to make them special. Where'd you get that, Jerry?
I just think through looking at myself and realizing that we're all in it together. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's not like you got to get next to this cat because he's up. And it's like, dude, I'm the same with an animal, a bug. I don't try to kill him. I go, this little brother. We're all sharing the same life force. Where it came from, I don't know. I stopped for a blind man in the middle of the street one time. And it was like almost like a miracle because I'm riding and this poor cat trying to hear, and I'm like, I just stopped the car, dude. It was like downtown Atlanta, and I'm like, hey, can I help you? And he took my hand, and it was so soft, and I walked him across the street, and I turned around, and it was like gone. I'm like, there it was. Whatever you
Yeah.
do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. So I guess it's from ultimately being into myself enough to where I can feel when someone else is like being themselves and
Yeah.
they're not making excuses, or they're not like I'm saying, I've had several things like that where I tipped the girl $30 on a $15 lunch and she was like, oh my God, but it was like, it was close to closing, but I was like, I'm not a rich cat, but I was just like, boom. And it just lit her up, but
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it as an investment.
Right.
And I hate to say, but Jesus, when you give with the right, don't let the left know. It's like your nature has to become that. It's not
Yeah.
something I had a relative say to me one time, I can't believe how humble I'm becoming. And I said, neither can I. Right? How can you be? So it has to be, nature has to be made over, not
Yeah.
beliefs, nothing, not like random acts of kindness, senseless acts of beauty. No, you're already beautiful. Let it express, and then you'll see beauty everywhere, and you'll acknowledge things. So that's all I can tell you. Where it came from,
But do you think, Jerry, you had it when you were 5, 8, from that moment you're under the sink with your sister, then in through grade school, high school, college, music, and then all that, it seems as though there's some point that you had some sort of epiphany, or was it just there all along?
Well, it was drinking the bleach under the sink. No, seriously, no. It was there all along. That's better than ayahuasca, brother. And it cleans you out. No, but seriously, it's like, I forget who the poet was, Coleridge or somebody, and he's talking about something, but my sister, who passed away at 50, when I was in high school, she said to me, when I was a mommy, and I didn't go, you were never a mommy. I just listened to her, right? Because I believe, like, 3 kids can come out of the same womb and all, supposedly the same stuff. Somebody can process it different. Who's Charles Manson's brothers and sisters? We don't know. So I'm just saying, I think we bring something with us. And, some people keep putting their hand in the fire. Some people learn from the mistake. But my sister, I have to tell you, on her deathbed, well, first, when my father passed, and God, how she was still in middle school. And my mother and I came back and we said, your father left the body. We didn't use the term death. And now you're going to miss your father, my mother said. And my little sister said, no, I won't, because now he's everywhere. And when I watched her pass at 50 years old, she maintained her sense of humor all along. And I remember she was in hospice and apparently unconscious. And the nurse says, well, I'm just going to take a peek here. And she goes, no peeking, and just scared the heck out of her. But I mean, and so in her funeral, I was like, she never left heaven. She never left heaven.
Yeah.
It's like, it's here.
Yeah.
So where it came from, it's not from a book. It's not a practice. So I think maybe it's a gift. At times it's been a curse. I have no clue.
It's well put, Jerry. Yeah. It's like, we went to Charles Brown's, funeral service, and all the, little Richard was there, and Solomon Burke went, I'll have no crying here, because this is a homegoing.
I love that, baby.
Homegoing, like your sister, she never left heaven.
No, played I'm Gonna Fly Away, oh Lordy, it's like, that's exactly right. So look what happens in the first line and then the second line of New Orleans Funeral, and it's like, what is it? This poor friend of mine's fiance, the one that's in a coma. I mean, it's like, that physical thing appears to be Pam. But that thing that animated that warmth, that energy, and when you've been around a dead body, there's no magnetic field. It's like, it kind of looks the same, but there's none of that, right? So what was that expressing through that vehicle?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's leaving, but it's expanding. Eternity is now, this separates us from it. That's my vibe. I don't know how much of that you wanted to hear, but I'm opening up.
Yeah. No, I wanted to hear it all. In fact, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button here soon, but I want to tell you, I really appreciate this. And I truly was enlightened, and you really got it. What I was after is to have fun, but be conscious of this, time together. And I sometimes do these salons where we have several people, and there's a couple other musicians. I'd love to gather with you sometime and just do another deep delve into this whole thing. Is Anthony Burgess, wrote Clockwork Orange. He said, we must now ask some very different questions about the relationship between music and life. So it's like, what questions remain unresolved in these callings we've had as musicians in this world? And Jerry, thank you so much. Really been fun, and I loved it. Thank you so much.
Very, very nice meeting you, Jerry, and let's stay in touch regardless.
We will indeed. Thank you so much.
Bolo paddle.
I'm finding one of